Hey, this is Coach Brian Wright here to talk about the upcoming fights this weekend. We've got the UFC in Mexico City, and what I'm here to talk about is the 5 Contender Series debuts. And in honor of that, I wore my beautiful Dana White's Contender Series t-shirt, which I got cornering some guys. So here we go. We've got 5 athletes that are going to be making their debut. Now, the interesting thing about this is that every one of them had a first round finish. 4 of them by KO, 1 by submission, all first round on Contender Series. So go figure, they all got contracts. Everybody fought on Contender Series against people that were of equal records, but not necessarily equal competition. So when you look at the debuts they're going to make and the grading score I'm going to give them, let's break this down a little bit. So the first fighter we've got Rodriguez. Rodriguez is 6-0. He's an Ultimate Fighter vet, and he's got some fights on Fury. Now, 6-0 sounds really good, comes from a killer camp, but he's fighting Boraz, who's 10-4. The issue here is Rodriguez's opponent is 1-3 in the UFC. So I think this is a great debut opportunity for Rodriguez. I see him winning this fight, but coming in 6-0, fights on the Ultimate Fighter, fights in his hometown, hasn't really traveled much, doesn't have a tremendous amount of experience. I don't know if he's going to really go anywhere after this fight. I think this is kind of a gift of a fight. The UFC is clearly looking to get Boraz off the roster, so Rodriguez should be the nail in the coffin on this. And if he's not, and the UFC has to re-sign Boraz, I guarantee you Rodriguez will be fed to the wolves in his next fight. If I had to grade him, I'm going to say he's going to win this fight, but his prospect for having a big future is not very high. I think he goes 1-2 or 2-2 through his contract. Then he's going to go back to the regional scene, get more experience, and come back. He's very young. He only has 6 fights. He's probably going to be in and out and then have to work his way back in again. Again, that's my opinion. Take it for what it is. Now, we have 2 debuts going against each other, which is Panas and Wes Schultz. Now, the difference here is the level of competition going into it. Both of them got first round finishes on Contender Series, which got them in. But Panas he's only gone against, poor local competition. He hasn't fought anyone with a big record. He's 8-1, but there's no world beater in the tail there. Then you have Wes Schultz, who's been on the Contender Series twice. He's 8-2 overall, but he's fought in the LFA a bunch of times, and he went against decent competition. He never fought anyone that had a worse record than him. So this is a guy that's been fighting at his level consistently, and I think that's, with his grappling pedigree and his experience, I think he's going to have a very good time with Panas. I think if you look at the two of them, I don't think Panas is going to have a long run here. I think the only opportunity he has is to try and get the KO. If he doesn't, I think Schultz is going to take him down and is going to beat him up and probably submit him. I think Schultz wins this fight. I think Schultz has a decent run in the UFC. I don't see him being a champion, but I do see him having a mid-level career for as long as he's going to gut it out. I don't think Panas is going to get past first contract. This is going to be a guy that's going to go 1-3, 2-2, possibly, or could get wiped out off of this. I do not believe this guy really has much potential. Sorry, buddy. Now, the next one we have is Gondra, and he'll be taking on Medina. Gondra is 8-1. This dude fought very good fighters in LFA. LFA is a show that I believe in highly. I don't see easy fights there. I see a lot of people being developed against talent. That's the one thing. LFA, you have to travel. It's not a one-city show. You get a UFC type of experience. Gondra has had a lot of that, and I rate him middle of the pack here. I think he has a good opportunity. I think this is a guy that's going to win more than he loses on his first contract. I see this being, a 3-4 contract guy. I don't see championship potential in him because he's only 8-1 right now. We need more time to see, but I think he got a gift opponent. He's fighting Medina, who's 11-6 overall, but This is a guy that lost his Contender Series fight, then gets into the UFC. I'm assuming it was a short notice replacement, and he's gone 0-3 in the UFC. So Medina is struggling. He's probably not somebody that belongs in the organization and got in on a need stitch. So he's got a contender fight, 3 UFC fights. This is obviously the last fight on his contract. The UFC is using Gondra to clean him out. So this is a really good fight for the business of MMA. Gondra's coming in. Both of these guys are fighting at 10-10. This costs the UFC basically no money, gives them some validation by taking a contender debut, getting rid of a guy that's not been doing well. It's a good story for the UFC. It's a good financial move for them. Gondra gets his contract, gets his opportunity. Let's see where he goes. But again, I think this is a guy that is unproven. I'm not going to say he can never hit championship level, but at 8-1, probably going to win this fight. He's going to have to bump up competition after that. This is a guy that's going to have a tough road ahead for him. Now, the last person coming out of Contender and making their debut is Reyes. This guy has got a lot of fights. This dude's 22-5. He's fought a lot of times in the LFA, and he has most of his wins are coming against guys that are 12 to 20 fight veterans. This is a true veteran that's fought veterans. Now, he's going against another vet who's 29-6, which is Silva de Andrade. The guy's been in the UFC since 2014. He's had a decent career. He's been in the organization for 12 years now. That's a long time for an athlete to last. But he's gone 2-2 in his last 4 fights. I believe Reyes, they're looking to him to get De Silva or de Andrade off the roster. So when you look at how the UFC operates, you get these guys coming in off Contender. They're giving them stuff on paper that looks like a challenge, but it's really just a position swapping fight. So position swapping, Rodriguez and Boraz, that's a position swapper. Panas and West Schultz, it's a low money, no risk fight for the UFC. Gondra versus Medina, this is another one. They want Gondra to get Medina off the calendar, and then you got Reyes versus Andrade, getting the guy off the calendar. So you can see how the UFC is doing business here. They're bringing in new talent. They're making the Contender Series look good by giving them vets, but these are vets with bad records. These are vets they want to get rid of. So this is basically swapping out the old with new. If the new doesn't win, then they're going to get thrown to the wolves, and then they're going to be part of the clearinghouse in the next round of stuff. You don't get too many opportunities to do the UFC's job for them. What I mean by that is the UFC will bring you in to take on these vets, and they want you to win to clear them out, as I've stated, but that's the job they're hiring you for. They're not bringing you in just to win. They're bringing you in to clean up the roster for them. So at the end of this, I really think you're going to be looking at, out of 5 debuts, I think you're going to see 3 opponents that are going to get removed from the roster. I think we're going to have 4 Contender Series debuts win their debut. You know, with Panaz and Schultz, they're both coming in on debuts. One of them has to lose on that. But this is a very good move for creating, you know, the story that you need for the Contender Series to justify its existence. It's a good house cleaning move to get rid of guys that are not finding a lot of success on the roster. And yeah, this is how MMA works at this level. The young guys are brought in to kill off the vets. The vets have to defend their positions, and the UFC wants the storylines to go the way they want them to so that they can justify things like Contender Series consistently. But I think the real story here, besides the clearinghouse, is that every one of these debuts had first-round finishes on Contender Series. Now, their level of the competition that they had on the show is not the issue. It's that they came in, they put on good performances on that night, which now gets them into where they are. They're getting pretty good matchups to start as a reward. And you see there's a little bit of mythology being built here. I don't know necessarily if the performances on Contender match up with the long-term potential for these guys. Reyes, I think, has the ability to go far, but at 32 years old, I don't know how far he's going to go. Gondra with some good development, who knows where he could go? That could be somebody that we're talking about for a while. Panaz, I think this guy's going to be out pretty soon. I think Wes Schultz, if he finds his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu effective, his level of experience and the grit that he's shown in his career prior to the UFC, he's an unknown to me. And then Rodriguez, again, young, athletic, gifted, but that only goes so far. This is a guy that he's going to he'll make a little bit of noise, but I don't know if he's going to make noise for that long. Again, I said it before, the UFC is a meat grinder, and the consistency factor is not always there for some of these young guys. This pressure is real. So yeah, five Contender Series guys making their debuts. You could see how it's being set up. You could see how the business is playing out. And yeah, I'm very curious to see if what I'm saying will play itself out to be true on Saturday night. But it'll be a good card. I think that throughout the card, we have some great matchups. I can get into details about that later. But I'm really coming at this one today about the business of MMA, the business of the UFC, and how some of these matchups are put together and what they're looking to achieve. So this is Brian Wright. This is my perspective. Agree or disagree. I kind of don't care, but I'm curious to know. So if you disagree, let me know in the comments. And if you agree, let me know too. I don't care. Let's keep the dialogue going. Nice talking to you today. Peace.